This is the Kayatic Dreams Podcast.
This is the Kayatic Dreams Podcast.
It was all the red love, it's the Brooklyn way.
No man in the sky intervenes.
You can't handle the truth.
Fist and abomination.
You either die a hero or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
Where did that bring you?
Introduce a little anarchy.
This is the Kayatic Dreams Podcast.
Upset the established order and everything.
This is the Kayatic Dreams Podcast.
This is your host, AJ, bringing you the Kayatic Dreams Podcast. And today I want to speak a little bit about Zack Snyder and his DCEU. I feel like this is too big of a conversation to just have all in one shot. This man was creating a universe for DC Comics featuring all our favorite heroes, Superman, Wonder Woman, Flash, Cyborg. You know, we were supposed to get Green Lantern among other people, and the critics, the media, social networks, everything, everybody was bombarding this man for every creative decision he made. They attacked him for anything that strayed away from the norm as far as it goes towards the superheroes. So today I want to start off by talking about Man of Steel. Now, Man of Steel was the first outing that he had directing for the DCEU and Warner Brothers, trying to start and jump off this universe that would eventually feature multiple Justice League movies and spin-off to create movies for heroes that we've never seen in comics. Now, up until this point, at most, we had successful Superman movies and a few Batman movies. They tried with Green Lantern, with Ryan Reynolds at the helm of the role of Hal Jordan, but that failed. It was kind of panned for everything, down from CG to the actual choice of actors, so that killed it. With the partnering of Christopher Nolan and Warner Brothers, they created the Dark Knight series of movies, which was probably, to me, one of the greatest trilogies of superhero movies to ever grace our screens. Especially with The Dark Knight having Heath Ledger play the Joker. But WB wanted to capitalize on that success of The Dark Knight, with Christopher Nolan saying he would no longer make any Batman movies, being as though his trilogy was finished. They moved Christopher Nolan into a producer role and had Zack Snyder sign on as the director for Man of Steel. Now, Man of Steel was very controversial to people because, well, let's just get straight to it. He killed in this movie. And in a realistic world, it made perfect sense why he did it. So let's go to the beginning. Let's start with the beginning of the movie, which was a big departure in itself. The first 30 minutes of Man of Steel featured Krypton, and in all the other movies, when we see Krypton, it was just an icy planet. It gets destroyed within the first 5 minutes. Boom, the rocket ship leaves Krypton. He ends up on Earth, and the rest is history. With this one, they actually fleshed out Krypton. They showed creatures. They showed the environment. They showed their technology. They showed the struggle of Jor-El trying to, save his family, save his people, and realizing that the Council wouldn't hear him out, and they wouldn't accept the fact that the planet was about to be destroyed. They were using their own resources and pretty much killing their own planet, pulling from the core and using the resources to build technology. In this universe, the Kryptonians had outposts. They traveled the stars in search of different colonies and creating other outposts for the Kryptonian world, which would later play a big part. So we had an amazing cast. Like, I just want to say that from jump. The cast was completely amazing. Henry Cavill in the role of Superman. Honestly, I really didn't think anybody could make me believe that they're actually Superman besides Christopher Reeves. And this was the first time we had a Superman that not only seemed to deal with real world problems and real self-reflective issues. It was the first time we seen a Superman that not only could defend himself, but had to defend himself facing Zod and the other Kryptonians that came to Earth. So, what was the real problem with this movie? Well, people didn't like the fact that he ends up killing off Zod, but if you see the escalation throughout the movie, there was no way out. What was he gonna do? Uh, trap Zod some way? No. They used the ship that Clark was brought to Earth in, and they remodeled it or restructured it in a way that it became a Phantom Zone projector, which was a great illusion they had in the beginning of the movie where they actually imprisoned Zod. You see that entire process, and pretty much he already used that play. He sent all the other Kryptonians in the Phantom Zone. When the dust settled, Zod was still standing there. Zod was still standing in the ruins of Metropolis, and they pretty much were fighting to the death. And during this fight, you just see the power in Zod escalate. He, was military trained on his planet as opposed to Clark, who was just a farm boy raised as a human. He just so happens to have superhuman strength and powers. Zod was actually military born and bred. They made an exact reference to the fact that Superman was the first uh, naturally born Kryptonian in over 1,000 years. Everyone else in Krypton was made through this codex, which plays a large part in the movie and later on in the series. That was supposed to be built up. I want to tip my hat off. Zack Snyder definitely knew what he was doing. I saw the vision he was going with, and I'm just upset that people didn't, give him the chance to express his creative freedom and give us something completely new. So, back to what I was saying as far as the escalation of powers throughout the fight, you see Zod learning his genetics, learning his powers as he goes along this fight. And it got to the point where Zod is even telling him, this is either going to end one or two ways, with the destruction of your world, or you're going to have to kill me. Like, I would never stop. I would never stop my pursuit. Again, Zod was born and bred for the sole purpose of leading the Kryptonian army, of leading his people, and one of those big factors in leading his people was finding a new world that they can operate on, and his people could thrive. Now, people try to say that this was a far-fetched far cry from who Superman really is, and it really isn't, because when he went and snapped Zod's neck, he actually, you could see the pain and the remorse that he had the moment he did it. The scream he let out in that scene, showing, not only did I just do the one thing I'm completely against, now I'm officially alone in this world, the last Kryptonian on this planet or in the universe in general. He sent away all the others. He sent away all the others into the Phantom Zone. He's legitimately alone. What was the other option? This was the first Superman that actually had to deal with a real life consequence. So, you know, it's just a lot of hypocrisy that the people nowadays, they want something new. They want something that goes against the norm, but when they get it, they panic and they criticize it to the point that the execs feel like they have to go a different direction. What was the Man of Steel issue? That can't be the only reason why the title turned and people start giving up. They say, oh, he was an unhappy Superman, or he didn't express the joy and, the good nature that Superman was. Well, this was the beginning. This was the first movie in what was supposed to be five movies going along with Man of Steel into Batman versus Superman into I believe it was supposed to be a trilogy of Justice League movies. Um, it's a shame that we allow people's opinion to stifle creative freedom, and that was a big issue with Man of Steel and the DCEU universe as a whole. They, the execs got scared. They want their money, and at the end of the day, look at what big mistake that led to. People still clamoring for a Snyder cut of the Justice League movie that came along. People are now starting to embrace the the masterpiece that Batman versus Superman was. See, I think what they did wrong was actually market it as Batman versus Superman. If they didn't do that and they had no expectation as far as Batman fighting Superman, they probably would have accepted the movie in a completely different light. People expected this to be a drag out brawl the whole entire movie with Batman and Superman, and it wasn't that. Man of Steel to this day is the greatest Superman film I believe in existence. Outside of Christopher Reeve's original film, that was the first film, ever to really make us believe superheroes can work in our everyday world. It was the tagline, you can believe a man could fly. So, Man of Steel, Man of Steel to me should be appreciated on a higher level. And if people go back and watch this film, they will realize that it was very progressive. It was very different, and it was leading us to a place where we'll finally get to see the comic books on screen, not just a pale version of the comic books. Like people love the Dark Knight, but let's be honest, the Dark Knight Batman, he was a horrible Bruce Wayne. Like he didn't stick to any real virtues of Bruce Wayne, outside of the businessman playboy aspect, but everything else as far as Bruce Wayne, the way he dealt with the character and his evolution throughout the series, more so in the last movie, Dark Knight Rises, I felt like he really went against everything that character of Bruce Wayne is. Now his Batman, on the other hand, was really good. You got to see a lot of his detective work. You got to see his work with technology, a little bit of his hand to hand, so it was great. But even those movies had their flaws, and people didn't knock it down like that. I feel like with this social media era of, everybody has an opinion, everybody wants to voice their opinion. I feel like having your own opinion has really been lost though, because now people flock to these boards, they flock to these, avenues to hear people speak out, and they forget at the end of the day you have to form your own opinion. You have to really you know, uh, analyze things through your perspective. Don't just take somebody's perspective and just say, oh, that's fact. This is what it is. Don't listen to me now and tell you that Man of Steel is one of the greatest Superman movies and just say, oh, because AJ said it on the Chaotic Dreams podcast that this is the greatest Superman movie ever. No, I want you to go back and I want you to rewatch these movies. Specifically what they did right with Man of Steel was they showed Lois Lane actually be that reporter, actually be that tough as nails character in the middle of big battles and still playing her role, not just being Superman's girlfriend. Superman himself had to deal with his mortality, with his human side. He had to deal with the fact that maybe revealing himself to the world is not so much a good thing to do. He had to deal with, thinking about the consequences of revealing himself, and then if he doesn't reveal himself, what consequences does the world face? We have this alien invader in Zod who's telling them you have 24 hours to give us this, you know, this alien who's been secretly on your world for these years, you know, how can he actually be confident in the fact that if he reveals himself, the human race will just turn against him and give him up like lamb for slaughter to Zod? So, these are the themes that Man of Steel dealt with. These are the themes that I think people kind of overlooked. They wanted the Superman flies up and grabs kittens out of trees. No, this was the world crisis. This was, these were leading to huge movies, and to this day, Zack Snyder's vision is unfulfilled. They stopped him in his tracks midway through Justice League's production. Um, they brought on Joss Whedon to kind of taint his vision. This conversation is really huge because, it's now what, 2 years since Justice League has debuted in theaters, and people are still clamoring for the end of Snyder's vision. They're still clamoring to find out what movie was Snyder about to give us with the Justice League. And I feel like the lack of appreciation for what he was doing, beginning with Man of Steel, is why people are in the state now where they're, you know, really they're putting hashtag release the Snyder Cut. They're, storming Warner Brothers Studios and flying banners saying release the Snyder Cut on airplanes and doing ads during Super Bowls and championship games. And you know I give credit to this release the Snyder Cut movement. When it first started, I was one of those that was like, we're never gonna get it, just give up. But they got traction. They have all the stars minus Henry Cavill to champion their cause. And Henry Cavill, he's not championing the cause because he's also smart. He still wants to play Superman. He loved, what was done with Man of Steel, and he felt like there was more to be given to the role. There was more to see, and I agree with that. So he's trying to be politically correct. He's not trying to play either side. He's made mention on multiple occasions that he wants to play the role again. He's not walking away from the role at all. That's not his intention whatsoever. He wants to continue this story. But in order for him to continue the story and for people to really accept it, I think everyone needs to go back, watch Man of Steel back, take your expectations out of it, take what you think the idea of Superman is, and put that in check. Put that away in your closet. Close it for the next 2 hours and change, 2.5 hours or whatever it is, the runtime of Man of Steel, and just appreciate the work for what it is. Appreciate the art for what it is. And I feel like that's, the biggest point of why a lot of people pan Man of Steel, even though it was box office success. They did a lot of great things. A lot of allusions to the future, a lot of little what do they call them? Easter eggs. A lot of Easter eggs put in place. Batman versus Superman, starts directly in the middle of the Metropolis battle, and the continuation from one movie to the next was just amazing. And I feel like Zack Snyder is an unappreciated legend. Now, granted, I'm not a huge fan of every single thing he's put out, but his 300 movies were awesome. His Watchmen movie was amazing, and I did love and appreciate Man of Steel as well as Batman vs Superman. Um, Man of Steel had a lot going for it, and I feel like the only thing people harped on was the Zod getting killed, Zod's neck snapping. But in a situation in real life, when our police officers are in a situation where there's victims involved and civilians are involved, they'll take the life of one to spare the life of millions, of thousands. And that's exactly what Superman was forced to do. This wasn't a character trait where, oh, now Superman is a killer. No, this was something that obviously was going to be something he had to go through, live with, and evolve as a character with. The people just didn't give us the time to get through the movies to allow that character development to happen. You know, Snyder said it himself. Him killing Zod was going to have a lasting effect on the Man of Steel's Superman. This was going to be a character arc that was going to flow through the Justice League movies and eventually in Man of Steel 2, which we still have yet to get. There's no confirmation if we're going to ever get it. I'm hoping that we do. I'm hoping that they do release the Snyder Cut and we get this universe back on track because it had a lot of promise. And that was a story thread that I was waiting for them to tug back on. I was definitely hoping that we can continue this story. You know, just everything down from technology, the suit, the way it looked, what it meant on his planet, the symbol meaning hope, you know, the Kryptonian ship, him, the way he found it, the way they used the CG for his heat vision, the way they showed him explore flight for the first time. He showed us things that we've never seen in a Christopher Reeve Superman or even in Brandon Routh Superman Returns. I feel like Brandon Roof's Superman Returns movie was even a bigger flop than Man of Steel could ever be, but it didn't receive as much backlash as the Man of Steel, which is kind of crazy to me because in that movie he didn't fight anybody. Like he legitimately got shot in the eye and then picked up a large giant chunk of Kryptonian rock that was laced with kryptonite. That's really all he did in that entire movie. So I don't understand how people could pan Man of Steel, how people didn't appreciate Man of Steel. This is not the first time in comic book history that a person, one of our heroes, has killed in these situations. And if you go back to like Batman Returns and the original Batman, Michael Keaton's Batman was killing left and right, putting explosives in people's chests and throwing them down sewers. Like you all remember that, So people need to let the artists create, and I think that's the biggest downfall of what happened with Man of Steel. They just didn't want to let him create. They didn't want to let him be creative. They didn't want to open their minds to something brand new. Like I said, I want to have a little talk about kind of all the movies leading up to Justice League, and you know, I feel like this is a good discussion to have. And I would love to hear from you guys and let me know what you think about Snyder's universe and what do you expect going forward. What would you like, to be changed, uh, you know, or what did you appreciate from the movies? Me personally, I really saw it being a movie that was even in the tones of the movie. You see, Man of Steel was kind of a grayish wash on the filter, kind of like an in between. He still hasn't found himself. He still doesn't know completely who he is, which is true because in the movie, it was a journey. It was him trying to find himself, him trying to find his place in this world, him trying to, figure out all the intricacies of who he is, his race, who he's meant to be on this planet. How can he use his power for good? Should he even use his power for good? Should he keep in the shadows? Should he reveal himself to mankind? Should he be their hero or be nothing? And that's literally a quote from one of the movies. You can fight for them or you can choose not to. And that was the big dilemma. I feel like they humanized him. They gave him an actual thought provoking situation where it was like, okay, this Superman's not just jumping into his tights and deciding, hey, I'm just gonna save the world today and all the kittens in the trees. This was like, he got pulled into the battle. If he didn't step up and show the world he was Superman, Lois Lane would have been killed. The army would have had to try to their best to defend against these Kryptonian invaders, you know. But I gotta shout out the design team, the people who created the looks for the suits and the people behind the CG. I feel like this series of movies they used CG to like the best possible ability in a film. If you look at Zod, his suit was completely CG, along with the other Kryptonians. So there was a lot of advancements in filmmaking that they did. He was using IMAX cameras and just finding new ways to film. And I feel like people need to appreciate Zack Snyder. Go back, watch these movies, and curb your expectations at the door. And this goes for any movie going forward. Like the best way to enjoy a film is by not going in there expecting something from it. Once you start putting your expectations on something, you'll never be satisfied. And that's pretty much the case with Man of Steel. To me, Man of Steel is one of the greatest movies to ever grace the screens as far as a Superman film goes, as far as a DC Comics film goes. Um, I feel like you can't even compare it. Some people will say, oh, The Dark Knight was the greatest. You can't even compare them because I feel like although The Dark Knight had a superhero in it, it was more of a gritty mobster detective story as opposed to Superman's Man of Steel being the otherworldly, you know, world domination, world breaking, power level. It was giving us something real to deal with. How would the world react in a world where a Superman revealed himself, where a person like this with unlimited potential, unlimited power, what would happen if they revealed themselves today in the climate we live in? and I was eating it up, as everyone should have been. This was real, it was realistic. And if your only take was, oh my God, he killed Zod, well, he had to. And if you really paid attention and the way things were going, it was either he kills Zod or Zod destroys everybody on the planet. So I'm gonna leave that off as far as Man of Steel goes. Down the line, I'll speak on Batman versus Superman and eventually Justice League. I feel like the Snyder movement, the release the Snyder cut, is gaining a lot of traction. I'm hoping that they eventually do gain enough traction to get that film released. I'm definitely a supporter of the movement, and I hope they get their way. This is episode 2 of the Chaotic Dreams podcast, and we're gonna eventually down the line uh, come back and talk about Justice League, talk about Batman versus Superman. Uh, until then, this has been your host AJ. But also, do me one favor: go check out my brothers at Kayfabe Avenue, my other podcast with my brothers in arms, Mr. Richie Moon and Kayfabe Focus. We talk all things wrestling. So go follow Kayfabe Avenue, and please give me ideas, reach out, like, subscribe, share the content. We're going to be doing a lot more of this. My podcast is going to feature everything: music, movies, anything, all forms of entertainment, any topics that's spilled from my brain. I'm going to give it to you, viewers, to you, listeners, and I hope you enjoy it. Next time, we'll talk about Batman versus Superman, and enjoy.